This is Holly. The link for the sign in is in the chat box for those who just joined. All right, moving on to roll call. For CCI, we have either Steve Marino, Mike Wallace, or Mary Madrigal.
Steve Marino and Mike Wallace is present.
Thank you. CML, Megan Dollar. Hearing no one from CML. Representing the accessibility community, Cheryl Garcia. All right. At-large members, Matthew Ruggles or Luke Adams. All right. Moving on, Tim Kunkelman.
Good morning. I'm present.
Mary Jane Rasher.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Wes Horn, CenturyLink.
Here.
Darla Joseph, NNTC. We currently have a vacant position for our wireless call, and I believe that Carl will discuss that later about potentially filling that. Vieiro, Monica Aiken.
I'm here.
IntelliQuint, Ray Paddock or Lindsay Carr.
Yeah, this is Ray Paddock. Good morning.
Good morning. Representing the CLEC and VoIPs, Jay Slater or Erica Stevens.
Jay Slater's here.
Representing 911, either Daniel Calderon or Susan Myers. All right. Also representing 911, Danette Martin.
I'm here.
Jeremy Duncan.
Jeremy Duncan's here.
Or Jennifer Kirkland.
Also present.
Kimberly Colt, Val Turner, or Tracy Oldenmeyer.
Hi, this is Kimberly, and I'm present today.
Jackie Reynolds or Amy Bush.
This is Jackie, and we're both present.
Beth Dobransky.
Good morning. I'm here.
Good morning. Representing Sterling, either Valicia Librand or Paula Null.
Valicia Librand's here.
Jeff Irvin.
Jeff, sir.
Connie Johnson.
I'm here.
All right. Representing Douglas, either Deanie Shen or Shannon Brand.
Deanie's here.
Denver 911, Andrew Dameron or Jennifer Schwartz.
We are both here.
Vicky Prickett. Is Vicky Pickett on the call? Thought I saw her, but maybe not. All right. City of Aurora, Tina Bonetta or Scott Newman.
Scott is here, Holly.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Sean Shear or Brandy Seaton from Thornton.
Sean Shear's here.
And representing Westco, Mandy Stolzenmeyer or Matt Gage.
Mandy's here.
Carl Stevens, Tom Holman or Monica Million.
Carl Stevens is here.
And Boulder, Patty West or Christine Mason.
Patty's on.
Did I miss anybody that should have been called that did not get called? We're joined in late. Okay. And then representing PU staff, Daryl Branson and Holly Bice are here.
And it does look like we have a quorum. Are we ready for the next item on the agenda, approval of minutes? This is Carl. Can I get a motion to approve the January 2021 minutes?
This is Jeff Irvin, so moved.
And a second?
Patty West, second.
And Patty West, second. Anybody opposed, say aye. Seeing none, moving on to the next item is the committee member vote wireless carrier vacancy. I think Scott had some information on this.
Good morning, everybody. Yes, we have a gentleman from Sprint T-Mobile who is interested. His name is Patrick, and he is actually serves on a similar committee. I can't remember now, but in a couple, I think it was Iowa and Kansas. It's a couple of the other Midwest states. Unfortunately, Carl, I don't know if you got to see his email. He sent an email just about 20 minutes before the meeting started that he's in urgent care right now with pneumonia. So it doesn't look like he's going to be able to join today's call. Although he did say he might be able to join late.
Okay, and it looked like we had, Scott and I had a couple of emails with him, and it sounded like he was interested. He'd be a good fit. Holly or Daryl, did we get any other applications for that vacancy?
No, but I don't know that we really let everyone know that there was a vacancy yet. And just so everyone knows, Jared, who was filling that position with Verizon, he sincerely apologizes for not being able to make the meetings, but when he volunteered for this, the pandemic was really just getting started, and he was not aware of how much they were going to have him traveling to set up. His main job for the last 10 months has been setting up Wi-Fi hotspots for vaccination sites. So that's why he's been kept busy, and he has respectfully stepped down from that position.
Okay, so I'm assuming our action is to vote the gentleman in from T-Mobile Sprint.
I think you can do that unless anybody else has any other nominations they wish to make for a wireless carrier representative position.
Do you have anybody else interested? And this has been quite hard to fill, so I think any help that we can get is good. And I think it's good to have somebody that is also familiar with how other states operate. So can I get a motion to approve Patrick as a wireless carrier?
So moved, and I wish him well. This is Jeff.
So Jeff moved. Any second?
And Scott seconds.
Scott seconds. Anybody opposed? Seeing none, Patrick's looks like he's on. Welcome if he sees us later. Is there anything else we need to do on that?
I think I missed it. Did we take a vote yet, or just a first and a second?
Yeah. Yes, we did.
Oh, okay. Then there's nothing else that needs to be done.
Okay. And I just did the anybody opposed instead of trying to get everybody to talk at the same time on the phone.
I think that works best.
And then next item is standing reports. A lot of the reports are in the document that was put together by Daryl and Holly. The first update is by Daryl, PUC staff update.
So I'll go through these relatively quickly since you do have access to the written version. 911 grant update, things are going as they should be. Payments are going out smoothly. Holly, do you have any advice or anything that you'd like to point out to the 911 authorities regarding the 911 grant?
This is Holly. No, we're definitely getting them in, trickling in. So I haven't reached out to individual folks just because we do have a steady stream of them. But if you haven't submitted yet and you're questioning how to submit it, do please feel free to contact me and I can walk you through the process. Daryl has really created a great website on the exact steps. I know the contract itself can be a little confusing, and I know Matt from Montrose experienced that because what's in the contract contradicts a little bit with what's on the website, but we definitely want to, the website makes it much more clear on the steps that need to take place in order to get reimbursed. So I'll share that link in the chat here in a moment, and then folks can look at the order in which the steps should be followed.
Thank you, Holly. The PUC has issued a notice of proposed rulemaking to implement rules for the implementation of House Bill 20-1293. As a lot of you probably remember, we issued 2 sets of temporary rules last fall. This new permanent rulemaking would replace both of those sets of temporary rules, as well as implement other parts of House Bill 1293 that were not included in either of those temporary rules. I want to thank everybody who was part of those rulemaking workshops, the informal workshops prior to the rules being introduced. They made a much better document, I believe. I would have rather gone through 1 or 2 more meetings of those workshops to finalize, but because of the time frames and the concerns from Commission Council that we need to get this out in time for the Commission to do its October 1st deadline rate setting, we went ahead and issued those as proposed rules. The deadline for comments is the 22nd, so you still have 11 days to file comments, and then there's a reply comment deadline that's 10 days after that. And then the hearing will be held on April 19th virtually, and that information is available on the PUC website, or if you're interested, I can send that out to, well, whether you're interested or not, I'll do this. I'll send it out to the task force listserv so that you're aware of it.
Daryl,
yes, go ahead.
Holly, I'm sorry, will you just repeat that bill number one more time for the rulemaking?
It's House Bill 20-1293 is the bill that passed last year that this rulemaking is intended to complete, and it's also in my standing report.
Thank you.
The FCC has adopted a notice of proposed rulemaking. They adopted it on February 17th, and they also have a very short turnaround for comments. The comment deadline is March 23rd, with reply comments due on April 2nd, and this is on the topic of 911 fee diversion. I did send out to the task force yesterday the comments approved by the Public Utilities Commission in reply to that notice of proposed rulemaking. We did not take a particular stand on whether most of the items on whether items should be included or as an acceptable use of 911 surcharge funds or not, simply because I think the 911 governing bodies will do a better job of making that argument on their own behalf. The one thing that we did state was that the administrative costs for 911 programs, both at the state and local levels, also meaning administrative costs for 911 governing bodies, should be deemed acceptable. The proposed rules that the FCC put out leave that ambiguous as to whether they would be considered acceptable or not. In addition to that, we did say that we did point out several other areas where the rules are ambiguous, and without taking a side as to whether a particular use should be acceptable or not, we urge the FCC to make it clear whether it's acceptable or not, just so that the rules are capable of being followed. And then we also, the rest of our comments revolved around urging the FCC to develop due process around the 911 fee diversion topic, so that if a state is determined to be a 911 fee diverter, how are they determined to be a 911 fee diverter? Is there an appeals process? What is the process for getting yourself out of that designation? And one of the other things we also urged them to clarify was whether an entire state is considered a 911 fee diverter based on expenditures made at the local level. So there was quite a bit in that. I did send that out to everybody. Anyone is free to borrow any part of that they want for their own comments. And I'm sure you'll all have your own individual takes and and positions on that as well. So I would encourage everyone who's interested to file comments in that proceeding. Federal legislation. There was a bill that was introduced last year that is still making the rounds on Capitol Hill, and I have just received an email indicating that there's a chance that it might actually be reintroduced into the 117th Congress today, that would create a grant program for next generation 911 deployment nationwide. There are two competing groups that are vying to have their particular version of the bill introduced. I do not have any insight as to which group may win, but it's going to be interesting to see what they come up with, and we'll have to take a look at the details of that to see if it's something that will work for Colorado or not. I've also seen some articles indicating that the Emergency Response Act, which was a bill that was introduced last session and didn't go anywhere, will be reintroduced. At this time, there's no bill number associated with it, but it would direct the FCC to make certain changes regarding how notifications are made regarding 911 outages. Oh, and by the way, since I've skipped over FCC, there's a second FCC item that people should be aware of. On March 17th, the FCC is expected to issue a second report and order on the topic of state and local governments having access to the FCC's outage reporting database. That's called NORS, the National Outage Reporting System. They issued a notice of inquiry last year on this topic, to which the Public Utilities Commission filed comments. And so it looks like they're getting ready to issue some orders there, potentially giving a pathway for states and local governments, or at least states, to have access to those outage reports. I've listed several bills on here that are currently in the state legislature that are of interest, that may be of interest to 911 in different ways. I don't think I'll go into any of these in detail, just in the interest of time, unless anybody has any questions. But you should look at these in the standing report document, which is in the meeting folder, and make sure that you're familiar with these. Some of these may warrant a response from the 911 community or not. I leave that up to you, but I put these here for your awareness. Implementation of the state 911 surcharge. So the state 911 surcharge went into effect on January 1st, and the 911 authorities should see their first disbursement from that surcharge this month. I would expect it around the middle of the month, possibly around March 15th. So be watching for that. As soon as that comes out, we'll be looking at that to see whether it produced the revenue that we expected it to produce. And in the interest of making sure that it produces the revenue that it should produce in the future, the PUC is currently hiring a 911 auditor. If you know somebody who would be an appropriate fit for a 911 auditor position, please let me know, and I will send you the link so they can apply for the position. It is available only to people living in Colorado, but I would encourage anybody who has any interest in that at all to apply. The other part of that is the flat wireless prepaid 911 surcharge, and I've gotten several emails already indicating that people have seen some fairly large increases in the prepaid wireless 911 distributions for the month of February. And so that's good. We're looking at as much as 4.5 times what you were receiving previously. So if you haven't looked at that yet in your bank transfers, take a look at that. You should also be receiving a report from Department of Revenue when they distribute those. And then the emergency telephone charge deadline reminders. Yes, so when the statute changed last year, the statute, it was put into statute that new emergency telephone charges could only go into effect on February 1st or June 1st of each year. And so in order for you to change your surcharge by June 1st, you have to give 60 days notice to the carriers ahead of time, which really means that your deadline isn't June 1st, it's April 2nd. If you want to raise your surcharge to anything up to $1.72, you can do so without PUC approval, but you do have to send notice to the carriers 60 days in advance, which would put it at April 2nd. If anybody needs an example of what a notice to the carriers looks like, I can send that to you. I've gotten several good letters from 911 authorities that have already sent these out. But I do want everyone to be aware of those deadlines. And I am available to answer any questions that you may have.
This is Carl. Steve or Mike, you had your hand up first, and then we'll go to Jennifer.
Okay. Daryl, Mike Wallace, question for you in regards to the state, the new state remittance. Did y'all ever find out how that was going to be remitted, as in the naming convention that it would show up?
I recall having this conversation, but I can't recall what the outcome was. I will find out, and I will send that out to everybody.
Okay, thank you.
Jennifer, you're next in the Arapahoe County.
Thanks. So I just wanted to clarify, can you state again what the reason for the increase in the wireless remittances are?
Sure. So prior to last year, the amount was 1.4% of each wireless prepaid telecommunications service transaction. So basically, anytime somebody bought prepaid minutes, they paid 1.4% to DOR, which then distributed those to the 911 governing bodies based on wireless call volume. The bill that was passed last year changed it starting January 1st of this year to a flat rate of $1.38. That $1.38 is based on the average of the local surcharge statewide, the local emergency telephone charge, which was $1.28 last year, plus the 10-cent statewide 911 surcharge, bringing it to $1.38. We had no idea at the time how that would affect the revenues from the prepaid surcharge, because we had no data whatsoever on how many of those transactions were taking place statewide. We knew the total amount based on the percentage, but we had no idea how many different individual transactions were taking place. So it's a pleasant surprise that it's producing more than it was producing previously. But that's the reason, is because it went from a flat rate, or it went from a percentage rate to a flat rate, and it was based on a calculation that was designed to bring parity to what the prepaid users are paying.
Thank you.
Bruce, go ahead.
I was just curious, Daryl, yesterday it was mentioned on a call that there were some authorities that did not see an increase. Were you able to look at that at all?
The only one I was aware of was Larimer County, and Kimberly indicated that she was looking at the January report instead of the February report. When she looked at the February report, the increase was there.
Oh,
so,
very good. Okay.
So as far as I know, everyone should have seen the increase. So take a look at what you received for the month of February, and if you did not see an increase, let me know, and I can get with DOR and maybe track that down.
Hey, Daryl, this is Scott from City of Aurora.
Yes, sir.
We had not seen an increase yet, but it could be due to the lag time between the times revenues remitted and it's tracked in our collection system at the city. So we're going to wait till this month to go back and look at that, and then reach out if we need to.
Okay.
And Scott, somebody should be receiving an email from DOR lining out the amount being remitted to you on a monthly basis.
That's good to know. Thanks, Bruce. I'll reach out to our tax and licensing group and see if they've received that.
And I received mine on Friday.
The change I saw, if that continues, will be an extra $420,000 a year for my authority.
Well, that's not chump change. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
This is Carl. Daryl, thank you for that report. Next item is the ESP report from Lumen. Any report from Lumen? Seeing none, we'll go on to BSP report from Entrado.
I don't have anything to report today. Thank you, Carl.
Thank you. Next item, Agenda Committee, Daryl Branson.
So the Agenda Committee did meet to discuss future presentations, presentation topics and speakers. In addition to deciding on proposed speakers for the next, really for the first half of 2021, we also determined that there were some topics of interest that wouldn't easily fit into the 30 to 45 minutes that we have at the end of task force meetings. So we're going to start doing meetings between the meetings, or presentations between the meetings. So, you know, this being the March meeting, we have a presentation today. We're also going to do a lunch and learn in April, and then do another lunch and learn in June, and continue on with that pattern as long as we have topics and presentations that warrant an additional presentation. So be watching for that. We're going to I'll send those out after each meeting. You'll get information about the next presentation. So be watching for that. I'm really excited to be able to bring some additional content to the task force participants to you know, make the most out of your participation and your membership in the task force. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Item is Bylaws Committee. It looks like there's no bylaw changes or recommendations. Is that true, Kimberly?
That's correct. No changes, recommendations at this time.
Thank you. This is Carl again. Next item is Legislative Committee, Jackie Louise.
Good morning. The Legislative Committee also worked on FCC comments, which we have a formalized draft this morning that I will get out to. I'll get that out to the whole task force. I'll get it out to the committee and the task force. With those comments, they're right now it's on behalf of Douglas, El Paso, and Eagle counties. Any other counties or PSAPs that want to join in on those comments, we're happy to put you down as a signature. We just need who would be the signature on it. And we will file those with the FCC if anybody wants. In addition, if you have further comments than what we went through or what Daryl went through, we anticipate that then you would file those on your own to the FCC, those comments. The telecommunicator first responder resolution is moving forward. We talked with Representative McCluskey. We're shooting for the week of National Telecommunicators Week. However, that is budget hearings at the Capitol. So she may have to do it the Monday after National Telecommunicators Week. But we're hoping to get that wrapped up and have that resolution done in April. And then we have some other future legislation we're working on, like misuse of 911. And so we're trying to decide what that looks like, what we want to put in it, and that kind of thing for future legislation in 2022. And we will be looking at some revisions that were sent to us and directed to us to see if we want to also move some revisions of current legislation over to a legislative session in 2022, but we're not going to do any legislative movement until 2022. So if you'd like to join that committee, it's on the task force website. We have a really good time, as everybody can attest. And oh, the draft standards, we decided to take that over to the CCOA that Kimberly will talk about, and that will be kind of moved into that purview for now. That's what I have on the legislative committee, if anybody has any questions.
Jackie, this is Daryl. I'll just let you know, NASNA did a survey like a month ago of states on misuse of 911, and I have a folder full of statutes from other states on that topic that I'll send you.
Awesome, thank you. I'll get that out to the group as well. Thanks.
And Jennifer, Bruce, did you have something? I'm showing your hand raised, or is that from earlier?
Mine's from earlier. Sorry about that.
Mine too.
Well, and then I got out of it there, and I wasn't sure if it was new or waiting. Next item is Equal Access Committee, Cheryl, I don't see her on the line. Do we have somebody else to give the report?
This is Holly speaking. No, Cheryl is not here. She did submit a report that we had previously met in February. The committee did, with a presentation presented on emergency alerts. And then additionally, I wanted to add the work that is being done currently on the text to 911 memo. The Equal Access Committee has created a draft memo that they will be submitting to the ESI user, the ESINet user group. And the memo is requesting that they make text to 911 a priority with CenturyLink and adding that as part of the ESINet and as part of the tariff. And with that, we have reached out to stakeholders throughout the state who we believe would have an interest in ensuring that text to 911 is made available statewide. We've reached out to more than 40 different organizations, most of them that focus on folks with disabilities or those who have hearing and speech loss. And so I think we've probably received about 10 stakeholder responses so far saying that they are in agreement and will be signing on to that memo. The task force or the committee will be doing a follow-up with the additional stakeholders because we know that there's a lot of folks on that list who their consumers would definitely benefit from text to 911. So our goal is to have those stakeholders signed on by March 22nd, and then we will be submitting the memo to the ESI Usernet hopefully by April 1st. And I think that is it for the Equal Access Committee.
This is Carl. Holly, thank you very much for the report. Do you know if there's any federal movement on making text to 911 a requirement like they do TDDs or TTYs?
This is Holly. No, from my end, Department of Justice is the one who would be required to make any type of movement on that. And from the relay industry, we have not seen any movement from the DOJ on making that a requirement.
This is Carl, thank you. Anything else from anybody? Seeing none, outage committee, Daryl Branson.
So here are our outages, outage statistics from the beginning of the year. We are ahead, unfortunately, of the last several years in terms of how many outages we've had so far at this point in the year. However, we're looking at 3 as opposed to 2 or 1. So I wouldn't take too much of a trend out of that. Hopefully it'll balance out throughout the rest of the year. We had, and that's interesting that it's showing 3 in January and 1 in March, which would be 4, but only 3 up here. I'm gonna have to see what's going on with that chart because obviously that doesn't add up. So far, the outages that we've had have been mostly due to accidental cable cuts, with 1 outage being caused by some unknown cause. It's still being investigated. One thing that I'd like to point out from the outage committee, though, is we have been doing special investigations into outages that meet certain criteria. The way we've been doing those in the past is we would meet and then go over every outage investigation that we have currently open and ongoing and try to move each one of them ahead a little bit. And that wasn't working very well because what we ended up doing was rehashing the same information for the same outages at every meeting and never getting closure. So what I'm going to be doing differently going forward is if there's an outage that meets our criteria for a special investigation, I will reach out to the affected 911 center or 911 centers and ask them if they would like to have a meeting with CenturyLink to discuss the outage. And if they say yes, then we will arrange that meeting at a time that works for both CenturyLink and the outage and the affected PSAPs. And then also invite the members of the outage committee to be part of that. And we will focus on that one outage for the duration of that meeting. And my goal there is to get into the details necessary to come to some sort of closure on the outage reports that we have. So that's what we're going to be doing moving forward. I'm hoping that it produces more useful information. I also would like to point out that I am working on collecting information from all of the previous outage investigations that we have had and creating a best practices and lessons learned document. I believe somebody from the outage committee, let me know if I'm saying this, if I'm saying something that I believe I sent that out to everybody to look at on the outage committee.
Yes, you did.
Okay, good. I couldn't remember if I actually sent it out or if I just thought about sending it out. So I sent that out to the outage committee for input. The idea behind this document is that it's not ever going to be done. It is going to be a living document so that as additional outage reports are completed, we can take the lessons learned and best practices from those and add them into this document that will be available on the outage committee's website. So that's I think that'll be hopefully a useful tool for everyone going forward. And with that, I would answer any questions that people may have. Okay, thank you.
This is Carl. Beryl, thank you very much. I think that lessons learned is going to be very helpful down the road, especially as it builds. Our next item is Prepaid and Collections Committee. Jackie Louise.
Let me find my buttons. Hi again. We did have a meeting at the beginning of March, and we are working on getting a draft best practices for policies and procedures to adopt for audits and appeals. Audits and appeals, policies and procedures. I do have some copies from different people, and I promised the group I would get that out, and it's still sitting on my to-do list. So I will get those out for the committee to look at. We also talked about the number of concurrent sessions, and that may have to change slightly, and we're just kind of looking into where that needs to change. The military installations that do not go through an authority board were counted in that count. However, they won't be getting state surcharge, so that count needs to change there. And then there have been requests from State Patrol to have some concurrent sessions. So once that flushes out, I guess we'll look at the exact total of concurrent sessions. Again, as Daryl said, the flat rate for prepaid wireless showed up this week. Make sure you check it. It's looking very nice. And I think Daryl mentioned this, but I'll mention it again. The statewide surcharge, Daryl receives a report on the 15th. So you should be seeing that shortly. Is my understanding. You'll get your deposits about the same time he gets the report. And we don't have another meeting scheduled till June, but I might send out a doodle poll and see if we want to meet a little earlier to get those policies and procedures in place. Any questions?
Jackie, just a quick note. The statute that was passed last year requires that if any 911 governing body wants to increase their number of concurrent sessions, well, they can do it, but if they want to get credit for it in the disbursements, they have to apply to the commission for approval to increase their number of concurrent sessions. I am working on an application form that people can use for that purpose. Unfortunately, I've been told by Commission Counsel that I'm not allowed to make that form live until after the final rules have been approved. But I will send a draft copy to you, Jackie, so that maybe the members of the Collections and Prepaid Committee can look at that form and see if they have any feedback for me on improving that.
That would be great. Thank you.
This is Carl. Jackie, thank you for your report. Next item is Reports Committee, Daryl Branson.
So as everyone may recall, the task force provides a report to the commission 3 times a year. They do it at the March, July, and November meeting, this being the March meeting. This is one of the times that a draft report has been made available to you. It is in the meeting folder. So hopefully people have had a chance to look at it. If you have any feedback regarding it, you can let me know now. It has been sent to the reports committee, and input from the reports committee has been incorporated into the version of the report that's currently available in the meetings folder. But unless anybody has any additional feedback they wish to provide at this time, I would ask Carl that you call for a vote to approve the report.
This is Carl. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns about the report? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the report?
This is Kimberly. I'll make the motion to approve the report as presented.
And second?
Scott Newman seconds.
Thank you. Anybody opposed? Seeing none, motion passes.
Thank you.
This is Carl. Next item is the ESI user group, Kimberly Culp.
This is Kimberly. So we've had 2 ESINet meetings this week, one on Monday with those PSEPs that are getting ready to migrate this month, and then a all hands user group meeting on Wednesday. We are just over 77% complete in the project, and Lumen is on target to wrap up the majority of the PSAPs by the end of this month in their migration. The few outliers that are not scheduled yet for a March migration are the bases that they are just working through and Aspen Pitkin. So we're getting close to being complete with the migration. For open issues on the ESINet, we do have one item that would be a severe item that we are monitoring, which is the inability for Vail to answer incoming 911 calls, sporadic and random. So far, it hasn't repeated for a few weeks, so we believe and we're hopeful that Lumen has resolved the issue. So we are officially in a monitoring status with that. A couple of items that are outstanding for Lumen for the ESINet user group. We have asked for a presentation on the NG91 call flow that'll happen post-migration for all the PSAPs. What is upcoming next month we're hoping for, is we made the official request on Wednesday, is for Lumen to present any complexity call flow process to have the TCCs directly connect into the ESINet. So as Holly mentioned, this is going to be a formal request coming from her group, and we would like to make sure that we understand the technical challenges with that. So we're hoping to hear from Lumen in April on that presentation. And then the other item we have requested from Lumen is some solutions, ideas, answers, alternatives to Clearview metrics. So the Clearview reporting tools have been cumbersome. They are under some modifications with Intrado, revamping, redoing. I'm not sure what it's going to look like when they're done approach, but the current status of the Clearview has been a bit of a challenge. It only operates on the IE. It's legacy, antiquated, and the results are not consistent with what we're seeing in our CPE systems. So we're waiting to hear back from Lumen, who's working with Intrado, on what the new revised Clearview will look like. But we've also asked Lumen to explore ECATs at the ESINet level. So hopefully we'll have a report from them in April on what challenges, are we looking at an additional cost? And if so, what would that look like to be able to get ECATs at the ESINet? Any questions for me on the user group? Okay, that's all I have then. Thanks, Carl.
This is Carl. Kimberly, thank you, and thank you for your leadership on the committee. Next item is GIS committee for Matt. It looks like nothing to report.
Yeah, there's not been any activity with the GIS committee specifically. We're waiting to hear from Lumen and Intrado what their thoughts are on a path for geospatial 911. I did hear through the grapevine that there's a 911 authority that is moving ahead with a gap analysis directly with Intrado on their GIS data. But nothing official to the GIS committee about that.
This is Carl. Matt, thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have anything for that?
So this is Kimberly. That rumor is true. That's Lita. So I serve on an executive advisory board with Intrado, and we volunteer to beta some GIS solutions that they have. So I'd emailed you, Matt and Daryl, about that, and we're absolutely willing to share the results of those tools and what that looks like. And that'll be something that we'll do with Intrado and Lumen. But that conversation is underway. We have a very strong point-based address map countywide that we've been preparing for spatial call routing for about 3.5 years. So we're ready to see how it will match up with the big picture of what spatial call routing will look like. So Matt will work closely with you when you're ready for us to discuss that with the two vendors.
You bet. I'll have to look for that email. Thanks.
Thank you for that. And then the next item is Colorado Public Safety Broadband Update. Ed Mills.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, Carl. I'll try to keep it short. One of the biggest items is the Governor's Office of Information Technology has appointed Anthony Antonio Sean Martinez as the Executive Director to lead the Colorado Broadband Office. I will say that Antonio has a heart for public safety and the 911 community, and he will be allowing me to do whatever it's going to take to serve the community. Martinez is responsible for driving the state's broadband strategy, collaborating closely with Colorado Office of Economic Development, International Trade, Department of Local Affairs, Department of Regulatory Agencies, and other state agencies. And he'll continue the state's efforts to grow strong public and private sector relationships and communities to support the broadband expansion throughout Colorado, which will serve our community. Martinez joins the state after serving 32 years in a myriad of federal leadership positions. Under 6 government administrations, he served as a U.S. Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Department Treasury Advisor, Chief of Operations Officer. He was with the U.S. Department of Energy, and he was Deputy Director. And most recently, he came to us as the Director of the U.S. Department of State. He is a combat veteran. He served in Afghanistan, Iraq, and North Africa. 5th-generation Colorado native from the San Luis Valley, so he understands the rural challenges that we in Colorado have. And Martinez graduated from Antonito High School, holds a Bachelor of Science from the United States Air Force Academy, earned a Master of Public Administration from Harvard University. And I'll just add, Carl, if it would help this organization to have him join sometime, and you can meet him in person. He would love to do that. He's got his hands full right now, but he would love to be with us and at least introduce himself. Second thing I have, and I'll keep this short, is many of you have reached out about Starlink for public safety. And if we have gotten confirmation back from Starlink that they're ready to engage in those meetings. So if you're interested in scheduling a meeting, just reach out to me with 3 dates and times that would work for you, and I'll get that arranged. It's not quite an NDA, but there is a document, some sort of agreement they would like you to sign before they have those meetings, but they can kind of give you the lowdown on Starlink and when it may be available in your area. Again, we don't think it's a complete answer to the broadband issues that we have, but it is a pretty robust solution, and we want to let you know about that. And if you want to engage them, we have a direct link with them. We are also trying to schedule lunch and learn with the state to specifically talk about public safety, the 911 community, and Starlink's potential role in that. We'll keep you updated on that. And Carl, that's all I have, unless somebody has questions for me.
Ms. Carl, thank you. Any questions for Ed? Ed, thank you for the report. I think we'd be happy to have Tony at some meeting. Just let us know what works.
Thank you. Will do.
And then the next item is PSCS. Deanie?
Good morning, this is Deanie. I don't have anything further to report.
Deanie, thank you. Next item, SWIC report. Glenn?
Well, good morning, everybody. Glenn Kleitch here. Just want to let everybody know we have begun distribution, or have distributed the new Colorado Field Operations Guide. Went out to my regional field managers, and they are distributing them to 911 centers and other communication specialists out in the field. If you don't get one and you'd like one, let me know, and we'll make sure we get one to you. But in lieu of having the hard copy, we're working on and are nearly finishing the electronic version of the Field Operations Guide. My team has completed the edits of that. It's back with the vendor as they're working through the edits and the bug fixes. We should have that rolled out as an app, hopefully within the next few weeks. And I'll make sure that we distribute that information through the task force and other 911 contacts. So you'll have all the data in the Field Operations Guide right at your fingertips. Be good for your incident dispatch teams and other comm leaders. And coming up this year, we'll be rewriting the statewide communications interoperability plan. And I would love to have some input from the 911 community, as we know that radio and 911 go hand in hand, and your input is very valuable in that. I don't have dates set up for workshops on that, but I'll be letting you know when that is. And I don't know if you guys want me to touch on the potential move of the DTRS system from the Office of Information Technology or not. That's it's in the works right now. If you'd like me to talk about that, I certainly can.
Please do.
Thank you, Carl.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Back in late 2020, the governor has tasked the Office of Information Technology with what they're calling is reimagining OIT, or reimagining information technology. And part of that, they felt that radio, the public's DTRS, the digital trunk radio system, wasn't the right fit in the Office of Information Technology. So OIT put out a white paper which suggested moving the radio system to the Department of Transportation. Well, that didn't go over too well with the public safety community. The directors of OIT, Public Safety and Transportation got together and put a slowdown on the process, and then tasked the PSCS with developing a recommendation as to where the digital trunk radio system should land. And so a task force or a steering committee has been created with representatives from OIT, from Public Safety, from CCNC. We had someone from the Department of Transportation on there as well. And as we started through the process, Department of Transportation withdrew from consideration. But that didn't stop the steering committee. The need is still out there to complete a recommendation, get that to the directors. So we've been meeting regularly. We're working on a survey to reach out to stakeholders as to thoughts on system usage and where the stakeholders would like it to land. So we're working through that process. We will have some stakeholder engagement meetings as well to gather input on where state radio will be suggested to have a home. So that is in the works right now. Nothing's set in stone. Looking back over the years, the PSCS has asked that it be moved from OIT to Department of Public Safety. So that was, they still are keeping an open mind as to where it should be, but there's an indication that might be where the recommendation is, but we don't know yet. We still have some work to complete on the process. So any questions for me so far? Okay, that's all I have. Thanks, Carl.
This is Carl. When they, was somebody going to talk?
It's just echo, Carl.
Okay. Next item is Division of Fire Prevention and Control. Is Monica on the line or somebody else to give the report? It does look like they've worked on legislation, Senate Bill 21-166 from their committee meetings, and I believe it's going to pass. I mean, it's still working its way through the system, but it looks like it has a lot of support. No further comments. Next item is Colorado 911 Resource Center update. Monica's update is in the document if anybody has any questions. And that looks like it's it for committee reports.
Hey, Carl.
Next item.
Hey, this is Bruce. I just wanted to highlight in Monica's reports that she and I have been working to close those gaps in text to 911. Thank you to Pitkin County for agreeing to take on text services for Lake County. We are currently working on that process with Comtech. We are also working on Prowers County in Lamar, taking on pretty much the entire southeast corner of the state. And we're there's the San Luis Valley is about to turn up their own text to 911 service, so that'll cover, I think that's 6 counties, southern central, and we are reaching out to a few other counties to take on any of the, I think it's Jackson County and one other county up north. So we're hoping that we can get full coverage this year.
That'd be great. That's awesome work for both of you guys. And as always, the resource centers seem to be doing, leading us forward and getting everybody on the same page. Any other comments on that? Okay, next item is, sorry, I lost my spot. Old business.
Hey, Carl, this is Scott from City of Aurora. Just a quick update for Daryl and the rest of the group. Jeff, thank you for sending your info while we were in the meeting. Finance just got back to us, and they just booked that revenue 2 days ago. So we did see, right in line with what Daryl reported, about a 4 times increase on revenues.
You're welcome.
That's great news. Any other old business? Okay, next item, new business. Okay, do we need a break or are we good, everybody?
This is Holly. I'd like to take a quick break if possible.
Okay, let's take a 5-minute break or 10.
10 minutes.
Okay, let's do a 10-minute break. Be back at 11:11.
11:11. We'll be back.
Hey, Daryl, can I get controls to present my screen for the presentation?
I have stopped presenting, so you should be able to hit the present now button and take it from there.
Great, thank you. And Glenn, I was just going to present my screen. I made a few changes to our presentation. Does that work okay for you?
That'll be just fine.
Okay.
We'll be good.
Hi, Karen. I saw you just joined. We're on a quick break. We'll be resuming at 11:11. Hi, Samantha. I saw you just joined. We're on a quick break. We'll be resuming in about 6 minutes.
Great, thank you.
Carl, I don't know if you're back. I'm showing 11 minutes after whenever you're ready.
This is Carl. Okay, we'll go ahead and begin. Kimberly and Gwen, take it away.
Great, thank you. So as all of you know, we had a little fire up here in Larimer County over the summer and into the fall. And the intent of today's discussion is to discuss our emergency response, but specifically we're going to target IPAWS and talk about how IPAWS played a role in the emergency alert that we sent out. So I'll be tag teaming with Glenn, but just to kick it off really quick, since there's the audience today is beyond just 911 PSAPs and authorities, just a little bit about who we are from being a 911 authority, and that we oversee the 911 infrastructure equipment programs for 911. Up here in Larimer County, we have 25 government partners and 5 PSAPs. And then we have our population of 350,000, our Colorado State University population around 35,000, and we have 1.4 million visitors on the average to Estes Park, Rocky Mountain National Park. So when we build out our 911 infrastructure and look at tools like our emergency alert system, we really have to support all of our tourist population in addition to the residents that pay for 911. We really try to focus on diversity up in Larimer County because we serve this main I-25 corridor all the way up to Wyoming, as well as our mountainous area terrain community. So we have a lot of challenges, and so we are connected together in a EZNet. So we have fiber that connects all 5 of our PSAPs together that we maintain. And that is our LEDA EZNet. And all of our PSAPs share the same phone system. They share one CAD system, so they can truly operate as one large regional PSAP, even though they're in 5 separate locations. So just a noteworthy fact that I'm hoping I don't get to add another disaster after this weekend's snowstorm, but Larimer County has had the most federally declared disasters in Colorado. So we get to wear that badge, and it's one that I would happy to pass on to another county, but that is an interesting fact. So our fires this summer, this is what it looked like. We actually had 5 fires that impacted Larimer County, and they all happened at the same time, overlapped each other, would come and go, ebb and flow. So it was pretty crazy. The black area is the actual burn scar of the different fires that we were tackling. And these fires crossed county lines, which is always a challenge, and they also crossed state lines with Mullen Fire coming down from the north. Cameron Peak Fire is now the largest in Colorado history and burned 461 structures. Glenn, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Part of the essence of what we do in situations like the fires or other disasters is keep the community notified, keep them involved. And there's a number of different ways that that happens. As technology has evolved over the past number of years, social media has become a bigger element of that, and that your PIOs can handle that a lot, but it also involves a dispatch center. Text messages, emails can be sent out. There's the reverse dial back system, whether that's Everbridge or Code Red or Reverse 911 or whatever product you have. Your agency's websites are also useful for making notifications, but not for timely information. Local media is always useful to help spread the word and get information out to the citizens. And some communities have sirens and loudspeakers. We need to make sure people know what they mean. So education is a big part in making sure the citizens and visitors to your community know what's going on and what they need to do. IPAWS is another element of that, and IPAWS stands for the Integrated Public Alert and Warning System. And it combines a number of things, a number of ways to notify the community. WEA, or Wireless Emergency Alerts, and that is one that activates all the cellular devices within a target area. That's the intent, is to catch them all. The Emergency Alert System, that is the old obnoxious interruption of local radio or television, and now on satellite as well. And then there's internet services, whether that's your Amazon Alexa or Google device sitting on your counter, or through social media or other devices, your Apple Watch and things like that. different ways that the notifications are all brought together under one roof. Next slide, please. Okay, but IPAWS is one part of an overall system. It's not the end-all be-all. It doesn't replace anything. It supplements anything. So it's not the reverse dial phone system like a reverse 911 or an Everbridge. It's not a community opt-in plan notification system. Those systems do play a key role in alerting. They're still an essential part of what you do on your local notifications. And IPAWS most often comes as an add-on from your current notification vendor. I spent 20 plus years working in the Grand Junction Dispatch Center, and we did add the IPAWS notification as part of Everbridge there. What does IPAWS do that the Everbridge or the Code Red or the Reverse 911 doesn't do? You can get messages to visitors within an area. They don't have to be signed up on your local system. You get those without a landline. And I think we're now to the 75–80% of landlines going away. We're primarily cellular now. And those that don't register with the community alert system can still receive an IPAWS notification. This happens right away. It doesn't stay in queue for a long time. The message is dropped right through the cellular networks immediately. The potential is to reach every cell phone within a specific perimeter, and then it works through the broadcasters, through cable and satellite providers as well. So the I in IPAWS is the integration, and that brings all those together. The WEA system is the wireless emergency alert, and primarily that's what people think of when you hear about WEA or IPAWS, is the cellular notification. The feds, this is a FEMA program, Federal Emergency Management Agency, but it's a federal program to assist local emergency alerting. The ability with the system is to target a very specific audience. The intent is to reach 100% of the target audience without more than 1/10 of a mile overshoot. What that means is you can draw a line on a map, and theoretically you're not going to reach any more than 1/10 of a mile beyond that notification area. Sometimes on a big disaster moving quickly, like the Larimer County fires that moved miles in minutes, the overshoot is not a problem. You want an overshoot on that. But if you're a very targeted message delivery, if you want a targeted message delivery, this is nice to scale it down to a small area. When you launch an IPAWS or a WEA message, you have up to 360 characters. The system actually drops 2 messages, one of the old 90 character that is to hit devices that don't have the 360 character capacity, and that's going to depend on your cell provider as well. It's also available as a Spanish language WEA. It's not a translation service though. This is something where you have to get with your translator, have that message transcribed into Spanish, and then you can send it out in both languages. And in addition to the presidential, the Amber Alert, and the imminent threat, which all use the WEA system, the feds added last year 2 different categories, and one is the public safety message, which is a little less severe, and then test message. Cell phone owners can opt out of receiving those. The only one you can't opt out of, however, is the presidential alert.
Okay, so this is a picture of what our emergency alert solutions look like in Larimer County. So we really tried to find a way to layer everything to accommodate our geographic challenges as well as all of our visitor challenges with our tourists and our student population. So we have the IPAWS solution, which is everything that was just discussed, but we also have with our emergency alert tools, we have our push to social media. We also have our keywords. So we have a keyword integration in our solution that allows citizens to opt in by signing up just by sending a text to a word, and then they can get a quick and easy text alert when there's a disaster. So we use that throughout the different fires, and we would stand up different keywords as different fires broke out so people can get really targeted. So we have our evacuation keyword, but then when Troublesome Fire started to push over the Continental Divide, we stood up a different keyword for that fire, Mullen, etc. So we use the keywords a lot. We actually have a keyword that we're going to be publishing later today for the snow impact in Larimer County, since it's predicted to get around 4 feet in our foothills and even more in Estes Park. So we will stand up a keyword, we'll let citizens know, and then they can sign up to get emergency alerts specific to that event. We have an automatic weather integration, our citizen opt-in, and then we load our 911 database in the system every month. We update it, we geocode it, and then we publish it in our emergency alert solution. So again, this is the fire map, and the burn area is the black area. Everything in red was eventually evacuated. So in some areas were evacuated multiple times. So they were evacuated, then they got to go home and had to evacuate again. So overall at one time we had 28,316 people evacuated, and we sent 5 IPAWS alerts and 276 emergency alerts during this event. This is a picture of Estes Park on October 24th at 9 a.m. So this is, and you can see all the cars lined up. This is when we evacuated through IPAWS the town to get everybody to leave, since Troublesome was pushing down and jumped the Continental Divide and coming, we thought, towards town. So LEDA went live with IPAWS in 2018. And during the fire, especially Mullen Fire, we were called to send an IPAWS out because that area from the Mullen Fire was way up in a remote area of Larimer County, a lot of campsites. So we were able to send an IPAWS using an iPad and our app that we have for our emergency alert service provider. So we have an app on our remote devices, like our iPad, even on our cell phones. And when Incident Command called for an IPAWS alert to go out, I was actually out in a field and opened up my trunk of my car to take some shelter from the wind and was able to push out an IPAWS. So I don't know about all of you that are IPAWS authorized users, but it makes me nervous. So IPAWS is one of those that is challenging, and comfort definitely has not come to me yet on sending IPAWS. I get nervous I'm going to make a mistake, but it really isn't as difficult. And the more that you're in it and you're sending it and you understand the different fields, it does get easier. This is a photo from Fort Collins Loveland Airport when Cameron Peak really started to take a run one day. And it took runs throughout the fire. So we've established some best practices up here for using IPAWS, and we have a 2-person verification. So that's not adopted, and we actually adopted that after Hawaii had a mishap. So we're always looking at mistakes that others make, and we try to modify our practices and processes to mitigate any sort of mistake that we possibly could make in alerting the public. So we have a 2-person verification, which means if somebody in the field calls for an emergency alert, if I'm typing up everything, then I am having somebody else who's authorized IPAWS user to review the screen, and we talk through it. Okay, you're doing a test, confirm I'm in a test mode. And we talk through everything that we're doing before we send. We also create a trigger document. So this is something that we started almost immediately when we went live with IPAWS. And if the event allows for time, I'll draft a trigger document and identify if this, then that. So if the emergency is going to impact this particular area, then we're going to send an IPAWS. So I draft a trigger document and send it out to the elected officials, chiefs, PIO, everybody gets my trigger document so they understand what's going to happen in the background. If Estes Park has to evacuate, we're sending an IPAWS. If we're going to be evacuating in this particular area, we're going to send an IPAWS. So we'll develop this trigger document, again, if time allows, and send that out so we're prepared to answer public's questions. We also do Spanish translation. We try to incorporate that. And again, if we have that trigger document, we take that trigger document and we will have either a Spanish speaker in our in our midst that is great. They used to be one of our dispatch supervisors. He has since left. And so on this last big fire, we folded in Voyance, and Voyance did all of our Spanish translations for us. So they would translate the document, send it back to us, and then we would have all that information ready to go so we can publish it when we push out an IPAWS. There is a mandatory monthly test requirement. We really try to never miss those and go in and use the tools and make sure you're current. If you do miss your mandatory test requirement, they will let you know. And if you miss it again, you will get locked out of the system. So it's really important that you stay current on your tools. So when we use it, there's a lot of parameters around using IPAWS, and we are definitely more conservative when we use it. So we used it when Mullen Fire came down from Wyoming and was pushing to this remote area. And we used it when we were evacuating Estes Park. But as I mentioned, we used it 5 times for the fire. We didn't use it for all 276 alerts that we had to send for that event. And we're constantly balancing what kind of infrastructure do we have in place? What other tools do we have in place? How are we going to reach people? And we're constantly balancing it with message fatigue. So some of our experiences with IPAWS, Glenn had talked about the accuracy of IPAWS, and we've had some experiences where it did get over broadcast. So before we send an IPAWS, if times allows, we will notify our neighboring agencies and give them a heads up that we are getting ready to send an IPAWS. So we would notify Boulder, for example, when we were getting ready to evacuate and initiate an IPAWS. There's also a time where it didn't push out. So we sent the IPAWS, everything was good. FEMA confirmed that it went, but it's really up to the carriers to decide to push it from there. So when we reached out to FEMA to say, hey, we did a geo-focus IPAWS in a particular area, and we have folks in the area that never received it. It can be because of device, and Glenn will talk a little bit about that, but that was one of our lessons that we learned, that FEMA can't tell you. They can tell you what towers the message hit, but not if the carrier pushed the message further. Best practice in our experience is definitely know your tools and be ready at all times. Practice sending, practice what you're doing if you use iPads, if you have apps for your emergency alert service. Make sure that you're using your tools so you're ready to go. It kind of takes that intimidation away from IPAWS and makes you feel more comfortable. We also always focus on making sure we have the right target audience and the right tool to reach that target audience. Glenn had mentioned IPAWS is great because it doesn't require citizens to opt in, which is great because not everybody is going to opt in to your emergency alert system. So if you need to reach an area that has a lot of tourists or student population, it's great to be able to know and have that IPAWS tool available for you. We also spend time educating on system limitations, and we're constantly looking at, what can we do with these tools? What are our limitations with these tools? And so some of the emergency alert systems allow you to do throttling. So we're constantly looking at that. And if we need to reach a large area and we know that there's no way the infrastructure is going to support that, then we look at, well, maybe we need to fold in an IPAWS and try and use that tool to reach a greater amount of people. We have not struggled with IPAWS and the message length. What we had to do was really educate our users and challenge ourselves to be very concise and practice crafting the right message with the limited amount of characters. So I just put some examples up there on the screen, and we'll go through and we'll take a look at some of the messages that our authorized users send and taking away characters. Citizens just need to know what's going on and what do they need to do, short and sweet, and get the message across. We did run into an issue with IPAWS on Polygon. So we were trying to evacuate areas in Estes Park, but didn't want to evacuate the entire town for the first round of IPAWS. We were trying to do sections, and we did run into issues with that and the complexity of the polygons we had drawn up. We didn't think they were complicated, but IPAWS did, so we had to go back and revisit that. And then another issue we ran into from our Spanish translation where special characters fail in the IPAWS, it won't go out. So as you know, that will change the meaning of the word. So it's definitely a limitation that we were worried about, but you cannot send an iPause with a special character. So we did notify FEMA that we think they need to work on an enhancement there.
Great points, Kimberly. You've covered it quite well. The messages, it does require both the short message and the long message. And it's really hard to get that message sometimes pared down to 90 characters. That's not that big of a message to still get what's going on and the call to action. And that's one of the key things is in a message like this is to give people some direction. What do they need to do? And if it means go to a website to get more information or get to the text notifications or something else, that can be done. The 360 characters is helpful to spell out a little bit more. And as we get more and more smartphones that can handle the larger messages, that's definitely an advantage. We talked a little bit about the perimeter, where it can go. As Kimberly mentioned, the monthly testing is important. Be sure you get that done when you're an iPause user. FEMA sends me a list every month of those that didn't do their regular monthly testing, and I'll drop a quick email that says, hey, don't forget to do this. And it just takes doing it to bring you back into compliance. It's not that difficult. Every phone is going to receive the message differently or not receive it. Depends sometimes on the settings. As I mentioned before, you can opt out of receiving messages, and somebody may have done that either intentionally or not, and then they get upset when they didn't get a message. Also keep in mind that this is a part of a mass notification system. It's not targeting 2 houses or 3 houses on the street. This is designed for a much larger reach and for some more immediacy. It all boils down to technology, and as we know, cell phone signal can drop. Somebody may or may not get the message at some point. Having spent time in a 911 center, I know as soon as you send out a message to a lot of people, the phones ring. And you have to be careful and cautious about when you send these messages, knowing that the impact you're going to bring to the center when you do it. So a heads up to your neighboring agencies as well as to your own that this is coming out. Very, very important to do. Kimberly talked about the double check, and I think that's absolutely fantastic. When I was launching messages, I was really hesitant to use iPause because of the potential impact of where you could reach, and that's where the practice comes in. iPause has a laboratory side, the testing side, where they will help you, they'll work with you to do some testing, to do some practice, to make sure that your staff are comfortable, but have some redundancy in there. So if Kimberly and one other person are the 2 that review the messages, that's great. But what if they're not available? What if they are fleeing whatever scene might be where something's going on? Have some backup plans. Get more than 1 or 2 people or 3 or 4 people trained and able to do this. Have some written agreements with your neighboring county to support some iPause alerting. You can reach across the county lines. Looking down in Fremont and Custer County, they have a great collaboration there. In the FreeCom, they have authority to launch into both Fremont and Custer counties. With the written agreement, you can add your neighbor's FIPS code, which is the 5-digit number that routes the message or authorizes the message to be routed to a specific county. So it's good practice for dispatch centers to have that redundancy. Your local agencies have the best local knowledge. Some of the challenges, though, is you might need to have some agreements in place. It takes a little time to put it all together, but practice the handoff. So if a dispatch center has to evacuate, make sure that the backup center knows what to do when they get it. Also, talk about messaging, being consistent across delivery systems. What are the terminologies that are being used? Make sure there's some consistency. Avoid the 10 code usage, obviously, in a message, but some consistent, clear terms, and use those consistently in practice and in real messaging.
Great, thanks, Glenn. So our contact information is up on the screen. And I just think to kind of wrap all this up here is if you haven't become an alerting authority with iPause, we highly encourage you to do so. It's a tool that is a complement to your emergency alerting tools that you already have today, but it also will catch additional folks that are going to be missed if you just focus on your traditional emergency alert tools. Not everybody has a landline for you to add in that 911 database, and not everybody's going to sign up with your citizen opt-in, and even with us trying to do the short text alert, we still don't get 100%. So iPause comes along and it will help create this other layer to complete your emergency alerting tools. It can be intimidating, and I'm going to tell you from somebody who's used it several times, I still get intimidated. I have to take a deep breath and say, okay, am I intending to send this? What am I sending? How am I sending it? Is it the right call? And there's a whole team that will help you get this turned up in your area. Make sure you have the right training and just continue to serve as a resource. And I know that I'm willing to do that. Glenn is as well. I email him often with questions. How did this happen? Do you know why this went bad in this area? And just keeping that education flowing kind of takes that fear factor away from it. And for us, all the different alerts that we did, iPause really was successful. And some of those best practices I discussed, like the trigger document and the early on translations and all the training, just helped us add this into our emergency alert solutions to be successful with that.
You know, majority of the counties in the state are signed up, but there's still a number that are not. And I'm more than happy to help you work through that process. In fact, I just processed paperwork yesterday from Clear Creek County to get them signed up. That's been sent off to FEMA to get their approval. More than happy to work with you to get that done. If you want a presentation to your staff, to your community leaders, whether that's city council or county commissioners, let me know. If I was able, I'd go in person. I went as far out as Kit Carson County to do an iPause presentation out there. But that's when I was able to travel. Right now, my division doesn't let me travel, but we can certainly put together an online meeting. And if you want to share or talk about it or have questions, if they have questions, please let me know. Give me a call, shoot me an email. Happy to help any way I can.
Great. And we did get one question from Jeff in the chat. And Jeff asked if you put in a link in the message, is it active or does it need to be cut, pasted into a browser? So we put in our link to our NOCO alert map. As I had mentioned before, we stood this map up as a central landing place for all information that related to our fires. And in the iPause template form, when you're going through and filling out the form, there's a place for you to put a web link. And it doesn't work right with the iPause, at least in our interface. But if you put it into the action, so there's your messaging, then you have your long message, and then you have what action you need citizens to take, you can add in a link there, and it has been successful to be able to click on that and take you to another location. Any other questions before I turn it back over to Carl?
I have a question.
Yes, Joe.
Back when the foundation was doing its English and Spanish language ads for people to sign up for the notification services, our producer went to either Telemundo or Univision to do our Spanish language translation. When we went to Montrose, we had several Spanish speaking first responders doing the spots who read that language and they modified it because they said that wouldn't be clear. We came back over to Denver for a second time, and we had a firefighter who'd gone to school in Mexico and spent his summers somewhere in western Colorado. And he looked at it and he said, this could be clear, and changed it again. I think you said you worked with Voyance?
That's correct.
Were they good translations, and did you have any feedback regarding the quality of them?
So we've done 3 different groups, 3 different types of translations. One is finding that employee who is Spanish speaking, bilingual, and doing the translations, and his translations were accurate, spot on. It was great. We also have a refugee center, and they have the ability to translate in multiple different languages. And so for our templates, we have all these templates that they've been translated in multiple different languages through the refugee center. So they did that for us in a partnership without any cost. And during this event where we needed it right away, so we wanted to get that translations done ASAP, Voyance was fantastic, and their translations were spot on from what we know and all the feedback we received. So I think Voyance, I don't know how Language Line would work, but Voyance is our contract agency for those dispatch language translations. So it worked out great in a written version.
Is there a charge for that? And is that something that other authorities can use, or any of those sources, like the refugee center? Do you think they would help other jurisdictions?
So there's a charge for Voyance, and it wasn't outrageous. It was a few $100s. For the refugee center, that was in a partnership, and there was no charge. And my guess is they would be happy to help anybody, because that's the clients that they're serving, and they, of course, they want to make sure that they get the information in a way that they understand it. So happy to provide that as a resource to everybody. And then, Glenn, you have a question in the chat from Jeff about geo-targeting messaging to mobile phones that are standard WIA capable versus upgraded WIA. I don't know the answer to that.
Let's see. Can you? Good question. The standard WIA is going to be, the upgraded will definitely be more accurate, but the older phones, they should be activated once they're within, or if they're within the target range. So the standard WIA capable phone should get it if they're within the target area.
And my question, Glenn, was, you know, we've had problems. So one launch in particular that spilled over into, you know, other jurisdictions at quite a distance. And I just wanted people to understand that, you know, the upgraded WIAs will accept messages that are in the target polygon if because it's a function of their GPS location, whereas a standard don't do that, and they'll get the alert regardless of where they're at if they're within range of the tower, I understand.
Okay, yeah, thank you for that. That clarifies it. It's based, yeah, on the location of the device. That once that device is in that area, it should receive it on the upgraded WIA capable devices. As Jeff said, that's not always the case on the older devices. One thing to keep in mind, though, on a WIA message, to slightly change the topic here, is you can set a duration for the message to be delivered. So if somebody with a upgraded WIA capable device is not in the target area, and so they didn't get the message, but they travel into the target area. If your message was active for 4 hours, as an example, once they drive into or move into that location, they will get the message. It doesn't have to be just the immediate time when the message was launched. It can be active for those that come into the area after the message was launched for the duration that you set it to notify them.
And I've got one more question, and then I'll stop.
No worries. Okay. Go ahead.
So we have a new emergency manager in one of our ECCs, and he's had experience with iPods in Florida. And one of the questions he asked was, apparently in the interface they were using, they produced a map that supposedly showed cell tower coverage areas. Now our GIS provider does annual auditing of cell sectors and provides information for us, but I've only ever seen area of confidence maps for, you know, when you're locating a phone. I've never seen anything that displays a supposed coverage area for cell sites. Does that exist in some interfaces?
That's a really good question. I doubt it. I know the cell providers are generally, besides their marketing maps, say we have coverage here, they're a little more proprietary on actual coverage, actual where the towers are and what the exact reach is. I don't know that that interfaces with the various platforms that you could launch an iPause message through. I don't know.
Yeah,
So
there's
there-
so many variables. I can't imagine they'd be able to do it effectively, especially in terrain like ours.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's lunch and learns that FEMA does with iPause, and I want to say it was the February lunch and learn. I wasn't able to attend it, but that was something that a vendor touted on that lunch and learn. I'll send you the link, Jeff. But a vendor was saying, and it was emergency alert vendor saying that they can do that, that they have the cell towers, that then when you send an iPause, they can tell you what towers that message is being directed to. So you would have a visual display of the towers. It almost sounded just like a map layer though. So, I mean, it's like, okay, I can map my towers, but to know end to end that the iPause alert went to that tower, push that alert out from that tower, and then the radius, it didn't sound like it was end to end like that, but that could be something that your emergency
And
manager
maybe if you're in Kansas, that works, but I don't know that it will work here.
Well, yeah, tower coverage isn't hard to predict. When I used to do applications for broadcast stations and applications for cellular systems, the radio frequency engineers have software they just plug the data into, and it takes into account not only the elevation, but whether or not the top of a ridge is a knife edge or rounded, because that affects the diffraction of the signals. The cellular companies use this all the time in designing their systems, so they're not interfering between cells. So the information can be accurate, just whether or not they make it available.
Thanks, Joe.
Hey, Kimberly and Glenn, this is Scott Newman from City of Aurora. Just a quick question. We are preparing to add iPause to our emergency alert platform, but City Council has to sign off on the agreement with FEMA. Can you guys, is it okay if I use your presentation as backup material with them?
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. Happy to share that with you and any other information you have on how iPause helped us. Happy to share that.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Likewise, if you need anything from me, if you want, because I'm the state's liaison with the FEMA iPause office, so I'll be happy to help any way I can to convince them or educate them as necessary.
Thank you, Glenn. I might reach out to you. Fortunately, we do still have all of our meetings with them are virtual, so I might reach out to you separately about that as well.
Very good.
And I think that's Bruce.
Yeah, Kimberly. So how do you have iPause set up in your county as far as who can send the messages out? So obviously you've talked about that piece of it, but where does that responsibility lie?
Yeah, so we are definitely unique up here in Larimer County. So surprise, surprise, we like to be a little bit odd. So LEDA, the 911 Authority Board, is the 911 Alerting Authority as well. So we are the alerting authority. So we hold the keys to the car, and we then will grant access to the authorized senders. So as it relates to iPause, that's LEDA staff only right now. So if an evacuation order is called and we decide we're going to do iPause with it, we LEDA staff could send the emergency alert and use the iPause interface, or if it's an emergency alert that goes out and we decide we need to also add the iPause, and LEDA staff will come in and send the iPause out.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to do that model because I'm the only employee and I don't want to be quite that stuck to it, but I have delegated that authority to our EOC.
Yeah, well, we are a little bit weird up here. I understand. I embrace that though. So
well, when I got here, it was the responsibility of of certain people in the PSAPs. And as everyone knows, when an event gets big enough that you need to launch iPause, the PSAPs are completely overwhelmed. So I did everything I could to move it out of there pretty quickly.
yeah, it is. And that's the one thing that emergency alerts back in the day, from a historical perspective, were kind of an afterthought. They were something that you did. It wasn't really like the hub of the entire event. And now emergency alert and ongoing communication and pushing those alert out is really expected. And it's the center of an event that we have come to find out. I think we had another question from Mandy, but I'm not positive. Kind of popped up and disappeared on me.
Yeah, Kimberly, this is Mandy. I did. And actually, as Bruce continued to talk, it sort of answered my question because we also have EOC with the access to iPause. But I find that sometimes our 911 center isn't in direct contact with the EOC on that during these events. And just trying to think outside the box and how we could, better utilize this resource, but, not pull a Hawaii incident and send out an alert that we shouldn't be sending.
And that's something that's real. I mean, whatever model you adopt, obviously it has to be a model that you can have the proper controls in place so you can mitigate any sort of personal and personnel issues that can generate a false alert, an inaccurate alert. So it's critical that for us, this model has grown over time and we have adopted it and we're still trying to get it better and we have a lot of room to grow, but having bad alerts go out is a real thing and we definitely don't want to be there.
Nobody wants to repeat of what happened in Hawaii or the most recent Amber Alert down in Texas that sent out the Chucky doll as abducted.
And I'm still wondering, Glenn, have you heard from Texas if they were trying to do a test and forgot to use the test code?
I didn't get a definitive answer on it. I checked with the SWCC office down there, and they were quick to deny responsibility for it, but I'm not sure who actually launched it or what the intent was or how that actually got out.
And I guess from a testing perspective, I didn't include this as a best practice, but when Hawaii made that mistake, and prior to that, we always did a test child abduction or a test, and we would actually practice the tools and we would practice these real scenarios. And we have quickly modified after that situation. When we're testing, we will use other tools to test our language. And so it's like best, working on the message creation and drafting the message outside of the tools. When we do a test alert, we are saying we are testing the emergency alert system, period. Just in case something happens and you somehow make a mistake and it sends, at least all you're doing is sending a test versus a test missing child and attaching a photo of Chucky. That was horrible. Okay, any other questions before I turn it back over to Carl then? Great, well, thank you everyone for the conversation. Appreciate all the questions.
Thanks for your time. We appreciate the opportunity to share with you.
This is Carl, Glenn, and Kimberly. Thank you very much. I think it was a good presentation and good discussion. Our next item is open discussion. Any items for open discussion? Okay, seeing none, how about an adjournment? And then we'll have a, Justin or Karen, how long is your presentation going to be? Do we need another break or are we going to move forward?
Can you give me about 2 minutes?
Okay.
Okay.
Carl, this is Daryl. Just so everybody has time to go nuke their lunch and then come back to their desk in time. Do you want to give like 10 or 15?
Yeah, why don't we do 15 and come back at, what would that be, 12, 10?
Yeah, about 10 after.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
We'll go in. Do we need to adjourn first or?
Yeah, it'd be good to get a motion and a second for adjournment.
Okay, can I get a motion for adjournment?
So move. This is Jeff.
Yeah, thank you. Second?
And this is Scott, second.
Scott, thank you. Any opposed? Thank you. So we'll take a little break and then be back at 12:10 for Karen's rapid SOS presentation.
Okay. See everybody in 15.
It's 12:15. Are we ready to start, Karen and Justin?
Ready to go.
Yes. Okay. Take it away.
Let me get my screen up here just 1 second. All right, Justin, do you want to go ahead and kick off?
All right, let's do it. So, good afternoon, everyone. I just want to take a moment to say thank you again for adding us to the agenda. We're very excited to share a lot of exciting new updates with RapidSOS from last year and, of course, the coming year. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into some introductions. So, some of you may already know me. I'm the Customer Success Manager for the Rocky Mountain region. I'm based out of Las Vegas, Nevada, and I've been with RapidSOS for roughly 2 years. So Julie, take it away.
Thanks, Justin. Make sure my mute is off here. Thanks for having us here today with you guys. My name is Julie Berthelot. I am from the Pacific Northwest. I am the Western Region Manager and also the new kid on the block here at RapidSOS. I just joined the company late last year, coming from a 911 and public safety software background. So I'm so excited to be a part of this company. I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Jameson from the public safety team.
Hi again, folks. Jameson PV House. I know most everybody on this call, and I miss being in my second home in Colorado. Really enjoy being out there and really just have it be on the board today, kind of discuss some exciting things in the pipeline. And I'll send it over to somebody I know you know is Karen. Go ahead, Karen.
Karen Marquez, it's so good to be amongst friends and family here in Colorado. And what I want to promise you is that there is going to be something new. I know, Shannon, you always hold me to anytime you present, Karen, there's always something new. So we're going to have a few surprises up our sleeves for you guys today. And with that, we'll just kick off to a 2020 recap. So what has 2020 into 2021 brought us? And thank you to Colorado for adopting and accepting RapidSOS portal and integrations so greatly. You guys have been absolutely amazing. I appreciate the support. The company appreciates the support. And I really, truly hope that it's helping you all save lives in our own communities here in Colorado. The first one was Jurisdiction View rollout. So we announced this in 2019. It went generally available in 2020. And I just wanted to give you some statistics here. In the 1 year that we have rolled out Jurisdiction View, we have updated over 2,000 911 centers to use Jurisdiction View now. So we really do believe that is absolutely amazing. I know so many of you here across the state are utilizing Jurisdiction View already. Those of you who have not yet, I know we've been in conversations with a few folks. Please reach out to the team here, Julie and Justin, and we'll get you updated. We don't want you to have to manually enter that number anymore, understanding that there is a 10-mile buffer outside of your jurisdiction to be able to access that data. But we want to make sure that you fully know what the value, the benefit, and how to use Jurisdiction View, Everything Portal, and your integrations, and how to request your integration credentialing keys. So thank you, Colorado, for that. The next one was we rolled out during COVID Emergency Health Profile Database. This is a free nationwide database where anyone, very similar to Smart 911 for those of you that are still utilizing that tool, to go in and create a profile, add medical information, add your emergency contact, whatever the person puts into that profile is what we're going to be delivering to 911. We're already doing this today. Hopefully people are clicking on that phone number so that you can see this additional data populate. Apple Enhanced Emergency Data. This was also in partnership with Apple during COVID that we were able to roll that out. And then an announcement with SiriusXM for crash data vehicle telemetry. And this is now live. There is data flowing. There is crash information available. This is all real now. And we'll dig into that additional data, what it's going to look like, and some workflows shortly. And one last thing that we did a lot of work with across the country and even here in our own backyard was creating tactical boundary files during natural disasters and events. So in Tennessee, we were able to give them, I'm sorry, not Tennessee, but Louisiana, a statewide view during one of the hurricanes that impacted the entire state so significantly. And we worked with our partners to give them a temporary state view so that they can see 911 calls coming in. And this was because Orleans Parish was responsible for answering calls as 911 centers kind of went dark, lost power, had to evacuate. Here in Colorado during the fire last year, we worked with Kimberly Lita and Ted over in Boulder to create a tactical view for where the two counties were significantly impacted. And that temporary view was to bring a common operating picture for the two counties so that we could see all the calls coming in within that area. And I understand they didn't have to use it, but we had it there just in case they needed it. And so we just want to make sure that everybody understands that these are things that we can help work with you on. I know fire season in Colorado is expected to be pretty significant this year. And so for all of you that are along mountainous regions where fire is expected, please work really closely with us this spring going into summer and fall so that we can help make sure that you have all of the views that are going to be necessary and needed to help give you a very clear picture of what calls are going on or coming into those areas as we have hopefully not what is being predicted, but should it come to pass, you know that we're here for you all. And here we have some features that were released as well. So these were asked for, requested features. If you did not know or have not seen that there is an audible tone now that you can turn off or turn on in RapidSOS Portal, it's there. This was by popular request by many of you. And then the other one was, hey, Karen, it would be great if you guys had night mode. Boom, there it is. You ask, you shall receive. So we also have night mode. If you have not seen that, just go and simply click on the little settings cog and you'll see the ability to toggle back and forth between night mode and day mode, especially for those night shifters that like all the lights off. And with that, Justin, can you talk to us a little bit about Emergency Health Profile again, digging in a little deeper with our partners?
Yes, let's do it. So, so this was basically in direct response to COVID-19. We were able to team up with the American Health Association, the American Red Cross, and Direct Relief. And basically, this allows users to go to emergencyprofile.org and put in their medical information. It's very easy. And how that looks, if we go on to the next slide, we'll show you how that looks within the portal. This would be displayed with an additional data card. So as you can see there, there's the purple and the yellow down there, but it gives information such as the caller name, medical information, and listed emergency contact, which is very important as well. So, and if you notice on the example there, there's also COVID tracking. If a person was in contact with somebody that was, you know, infected with COVID and the dates that may correspond. So pretty cool feature. So moving on to the next slide. And of course, RapidSOS has partnered with Medic Alert. And many of you may know Medic Alert from that physical wristband that has a serial number on the back of it. So how that works is if somebody is registered with Medical Alert, the Medical Alert profile will display with it, again, an additional data card within the RapidSOS portal. There's another way to get that information as well. So say, for example, if there's an individual that's out in the public that has one of those wristbands, or a first responder would come into contact with them, they can call in that serial number and they can query it within the portal as well and get that same information. So let's see.
And then Apple Medical ID language, and I just want to make one thing clear on the COVID information. That's only if somebody opts in to provide that information that it would display anything related to COVID.
Right.
But Apple Medical ID, so many of you know, and I think we've mentioned it before on the Colorado PUC call, is that if you go in and create a profile on your Apple Medical ID info and you opt in to share that data with 911, either through fall detection, text message to 911, or a voice call, that information is going to come over into Portal, into the platform. Now, there are some integrations that use what we call integrated RapidSOS Portal. So it's that web browser that's called out through that call handling solution or through the CAD system to be able to access that. This will not be available in native integrations that would drop directly to CAD, and that's just because of some privacy with our partners. But Apple Medical ID is there. So we know that the information may not be relevant on every 911 call, especially if they're just calling 911 for a barking dog complaint or something like that. But that information is there. So should your telecommunicator click on that and maybe the caller is unable to speak, and we have medical information, obviously using tools like CAD to check priors and see if this information correlates with some of the prior events, and now you have information to provide to your first responders. One of the things for me that's really important is the emergency contact information and being able to connect that loved one with their family member if they get transported, or just connect that family member immediately so you can get more information. As a caretaker myself, that's very important to me, and especially here in the state of Colorado, I hope that should anything ever happen that you all will give me a call and let me know that something's going on. Language. So Apple will show device language, Android will show device language. So for those of you who have different languages within your communities, and we all know who the primary languages are, and every now and then we'll get a call, right, of some different dialect that we can't easily or quickly identify. Having this information come in automatically with that 911 call will help you get that interpreter on the line so much quicker. So we're really excited about that language data as well. Again, you have to make sure that you are clicking on that phone number to see all of this additional data though. So if you're not clicking on that information today, or your telecommunicators are not, they're not seeing this information. I think I mentioned this, especially to Colorado, because you all sat in a room. Arapahoe County hosted this out at, I believe it was Inglewood PD, and we had this Google users group, and Google was talking about the car crash detection from the Pixel devices, and you all sat in that room and gave them feedback, and that feedback included being able to see the information in that text. Yes, yay, Arapahoe County, in a textual format, so that when it comes in, you can read it and verify and validate that information. Google's now sending that information over. So thank you to everybody that attended that user group for all the feedback that you gave them. And they worked with us, and now we've got it in. So if you ever get a 911 call with an automated Google Voice, you'll have that additional context in Rapid SOS portal. Now, that automated phone call is not part of Rapid SOS. It is something that is done by Google directly. So any feedback or concerns that you have on that, obviously we're happy to take it to them as a partner or connect you with them, but that is not handled by Rapid SOS. I just wanted to make that clear. All right, what do we have next? Data from connected vehicles. So as I mentioned, we have partnered with SiriusXM, and we're getting crash data now. So let's talk a little bit about the workflow that you might expect. When SiriusXM car detects a crash today, that call goes through a third-party monitoring center. It is the SiriusXM monitoring center. And when they need to invoke 911, you'll get a call, and they'll verbalize all of this information to you, very similar to OnStar. What you're going to see as well, or in addition, is that information coming in with crash detection information. So vehicle make, model, color, VIN information, airbag deployment, the impact that the vehicle had, and of course the contact. So who may be driving that vehicle. So all of this information will be available to you in Portal, and it will be available through our APIs for CAD integrations and call handling integrations. But I'm super excited about this. We all have accidents all across the state, unfortunately, and this weekend we'll probably see a lot of them. So again, if you get those calls from SiriusXM, look over to Portal, see this information, and you're able to copy, paste that, put it into CAD, provide it to your first responders. Let them know that this information is available as well. Really, really important as they're heading out to the scene of crashes. Another announcement. Okay, I told you there was new stuff, guys. We partnered with a company called TrueMotion, which is really driven by Farmers Insurance. And this is to connect more crash data into 911. So what will happen here is when a crash is detected, there is a monitoring center involved. They will get routed to the appropriate 911 center if the party involved needs police and fire. So if it is maybe a single vehicle property damage, private property accident, and they don't want police to respond, they may not necessarily call. We know that other people may call on their behalf. However, if this person does, they will have the ability to press a button, and the monitoring center would be looped in with a 911 center. You will see vehicle information, crash detection, battery, the monitoring center info. So you will have the phone number, callback information should you need that. In addition, you'll see that there is kind of a little blue box on the screen, and what that's talking about is towing services. The monitoring center may offer the user to call tow services for them, and so you may not have to call that tow that gets requested. So these are just new things that are coming in. Certainly, you will have requirements for tows getting on scene earlier. We understand that. Those are things that you'll work out within your own community. And all of this information is available in our training center as well. Data from connected apps. So we partnered with another company called Vitals, and this one's really exciting too, because not only is this health data or information that's entered for a person, profile information, but it could also be behavior for mental health patients. So I know that there's a lot of work being done here in the state of Colorado. Denver, you guys are leaders in this right now in new response. In Westminster, I saw your co-response this week too, in sending different responders to mental health calls. For Vitals customers, they're able to put that information and any behavior info that you may need to give to your responders, your co-responders, your mental health communities. You'll have that information available in Portal. It may be a PDF attached link. It may be text information. Copy, paste that, put it into the comments. Make sure that your first responders know that this information is available. And I think someone unmuted to maybe ask a question.
That was me, Karen, sorry.
Okay, no worries. And then Julia, I'm going to turn it over to you to talk about where they can find all of the information related to these new data partners.
Absolutely, Karen, thank you. A few of us in the public safety team have been working really closely with our training department to revamp and retool all the training materials that are available to our agencies and users in just the past couple of months. And we keep adding new information as we add new things to Portal. So we've updated and added new materials, including our admin and our user guides, and we have them available in the training center and Portal. We even have a training course in Spanish with both user and admin information. So I'd like to remind everyone that the training tab is available to any Portal user. It's at the top right section of the screen when you're logged into Portal. We have training on everything from logging in and using the system for the basic end user to setting up the account, uploading and verifying shape files, managing integrations, and more for admin users. We've got some short cheat sheet guides with info on specific partnerships and additional data. Lots of 1 to 2 page high-level overviews that can be printed and distributed to staff, and users can also track their progress as they go through the materials to see where they've left off and continue their training. We've got some short 2 to 3 minute videos, contact information for your local regional managers and customer success managers, registration for webinars, and really there's a lot in there. So I really encourage you guys to log in the Portal and check it out. We would love to hear your guys' feedback. Let us know if there's anything we can add or expand upon. As Karen said earlier, you ask, we listen. She has more on that exact topic next.
Yes, and Bruce, to answer your question there on when we'll be able to, I will follow up with the product team. She was unable to be here with us today. I believe it's Q2, but don't quote me on that, but I will get a response back for you. What we really are excited about on this first thing is you asked, we listened. Colorado, you all had a presentation from What 3 Words not long ago. And I was on that presentation and I heard you asking the question of when will you be integrated with RapidSOS? So guess what? What 3 Words is coming to Colorado next Thursday, March 18th. You are going to be our pilot state. We are going to roll this out to only 2 states first, and then everybody else will get it at the end of March. So What 3 Words is going to roll out on Thursday after probably about noon Eastern time. When you refresh your screen and that What 3 Words location is available, you click on the phone number, you open up that additional data card, and underneath it long is where you're going to see those What 3 Words. Additional training, again, it's available. There's a quick tip sheet available in your Portal Training Center today. So I hope you guys are really excited about it. For right now, the integration is going to be only in RapidSOS Portal, but we are working on getting that out to your integrations as well through our API. So I'm excited, and we heard you loud and clear, and I'm super happy that home gets it first. All right, then we also have a new partner, and I'm super excited to have this partner on the call with us today. So Mike from CRG is going to share a little bit about what we're doing here, and I know he's done a lot of work in Colorado as well. So Mike, introduce yourself and take it away.
Thank you, Karen. Really appreciate the opportunity to be here. Everyone, absolute pleasure to meet you virtually. If you give me 30 seconds, I'm just going to flip over, Karen, and share my screen so I can walk through a presentation. Someone just give me a verbal that you can see that?
Got it.
Looks good.
Thanks, Jameson. Thanks, everybody. Like Karen said, my name is Mike Rodgers. I'm the CEO of a company named Critical Response Group. It's a business we started back in 2016 with the intent of taking lessons learned on the battlefield overseas, specifically with mapping and increasing situational awareness, and applying them to public safety. My background is I come from a long family of public safety. My dad is a 5th-generation police officer, and that's what the family's done for about 130 years. I'm the first one not to do that, so really the black sheep in the family, but went in a different route. Post 9/11, decided I wanted to go in the military. Started at West Point, and then from West Point found my way into the special operations community, where I had the opportunity to deploy half a dozen times on one of the task forces doing all the night raids. And I was introduced to a very specific mapping technique, and then ultimately was able to transition that technique home with the help of public safety. And now we're very proud to be partnering with Rapid SOS to ensure that we can provide the maps that I'll introduce you to into the communication vertical as efficiently as possible. One of the companies we work with in this endeavor is a company called BAE Systems. It's a very large defense contracting firm. And it's important because we actually use their software to build the maps. It's the same exact software used by the tiered organizations within the military, and we're their domestic partner in doing this. But the initial technique was born out of lessons learned on the battlefield around 2004, 2005, because the Joint Special Operations Community, or JSOC, was tasked with increasing the amount of night raids that we could do. But one of the primary issues that we had is that every night we were going out conducting operations, we were going to locations that we were unfamiliar with, which made it very difficult for us to plan, scale, and execute operations efficiently. So it's very similar to how one of the main problem sets that public safety professionals deal with domestically when they're responding to a location that they're unfamiliar with. The way that the military solved this issue was, instead of just looking at a piece of imagery, we turned that imagery into a very simple common operating picture that we refer to as a GRG, or a gridded reference graphic. So you'll see there's letters across the top, numbers down the left-hand side, north is up on the imagery, every building is labeled, and every intersection is labeled. And because we're all looking at the same piece of paper, the same map, I can walk you through a location that I know no one's ever been to before. So in this example, if I asked you to go to grid score F7, I just want you to play a game of Battleship. So you see F in the top, 7 in the bottom left, you kind of meet in the middle. And you'll see inside grid square F7, it's labeled intersection G. Now I want you to walk up the road from G to intersection A in grid square F5, and then make a left and head to the west and meet me in building 11 in grid square D4. And because we're looking at the same piece of paper, we can speak very efficiently about this location. Well, the military, specifically special operations, understanding how important and simple and transformative this was, made it mandatory. And every single night raid conducted by special operations since 2007 until today is still planned using this exact technique, to include the Bin Laden raid. And I show this because I believe it validates the technique. If you look in front of Secretary Clinton, she is looking at that printed out gridded graphic, that game of Battleship, the same one that the operator is using over in Pakistan to conduct the operation. And I think this is significant because when you think about the significance of the Bin Laden raid and how resourced, how properly well-resourced SEAL Team 6 was, we had everything at our disposal. This is how we did it because it worked. Now, I was very fortunate. I served in this community for a number of years, a couple hundred night raids under my belt. I knew this to be best practice. When I came home, we wanted to make sure that this technique was available domestically. It is not, as you know, just like I know. But what isn't available today are emergency action plans. So as we came home, we had our team was initially all former special operations individuals, and then we built out the second half of the team with public safety professionals out of all the major disciplines, so we could really understand the true nature of an incident response. And that's, again, when we were introduced to the emergency action plan that is represented by the binder on the left-hand side. And we'll just talk about schools for a second, and because that's where we started. But as you think about every school within your area of responsibility, they all have an emergency action plan, and it all looks like that. Sometimes we've digitized it, but more often than not, it looks the way that the binder looks right there. But most important, and one of the most important things associated with that plan, are the blueprints or building schematics. So what we want to do is really understand what's in place today, and then understand what we were doing in the military, and meet in the middle and create a new version of how we were operating overseas. But as we started to do that, we uncovered 3 issues that we had to overcome to create graphics, and then a 4th one that we had to overcome to disseminate the graphics. The first issue is that imagery is always presented in true north. So if you look at any of the mapping within your CAD systems, if you look in the mapping Google Earth within jurisdictional view or Bing mapping or pictometry, however you look at imagery, it is always presented in true north. Now, this is a small single-story elementary school, and you'll see a gold star on top of it. And although the imagery is in true north, blueprints are not in true north. They are in what's called project or plan north, which is arbitrary. So every building in your AOR is just oriented in a different direction based on the architect or engineer who's contracted to build that building. So that's the first problem. The second problem is that the blueprints are all out of date and no longer represent that location. We've done over 10,000 buildings in the country. Less than 1% of the blueprints that we pull in are actually accurate. And that's just because the buildings are changing over time and no one takes the time to keep the graphics up to date. And then lastly, the blueprints are rarely labeled to reflect the nomenclature of this specific location, meaning that when you look at this, which is best case scenario what you have today, and I asked you to go to classroom 2 or the conference room 5 or door 6, that is not marked on this graphic. So what CRG does is we fix those 3 issues. We standardize them in cardinal orientation. We make sure that they're accurate so they can be relied upon. And then we make sure that they're properly labeled so everyone can communicate off of them. I'm going to show a very quick animation. What we do is we take whatever's on file, cut it out, rotate it true north on an up-to-date piece of aerial imagery. We then walk the structure with engineering software and we correct the schematic. So we walk every single facility and correct the base schematic. So now it's accurate. So we're changing locations of walls, doors, rooms, additions, renovations. We capture all that. Next thing we do is we gather all the site-specific labels associated with this facility. So if they have it marked door A or door B or door Q25, we capture that. As we go through, we also take the time to mark all the critical features as an additional overlay on top of the graphic. Traditionally, that's the fire access control panel, the gas shutoff, the electrical disconnect, Knox box locations, camera locations, AED locations, anything that would be important from a response perspective, we mark that on top. And then the last thing we do is we take that gridded template, leveraging the lessons learned overseas, and we apply it on top. And when we do all that work, what goes back is a very simple final product that we refer to as a CRG, or collaborative response graphic. And the intent is that it's just very simple, and I will demonstrate. So on this example, if I asked you to go to the northeastern side of the structure, to grid square J4, come to grid square Juliet 4, northeast, and then find door D, as door D is physically marked at this location, I want you to come to door D, onto the black hallway, and make your first right and meet me in the media center. I know I put you through a very specific breach point to a specific part of this structure in a matter of a couple seconds, and I know no one has ever been to this location before. And ultimately, that's all we're looking to do, is flatten the communication to ensure that all disciplines and all jurisdictions can communicate about a location that they're either familiar or unfamiliar with in a very stressful environment. When we create maps, we create 2 types of maps. First is a macro, just a high altitude. Think of it as a command and control graphic. But the reason I show this is because it highlights the importance of the technology that we deploy. As you look in grid square like A8 on the bottom left, or just row 8, you'll see that there are what looks to be 2 different pieces of imagery that are stitched together. And the reason for that is because the software we use enables us to take imagery off of any platform. So any satellite, any drone, any airplane, we can use that and stitch it together like a jigsaw puzzle. It's important for 2 reasons. One, we can replace bad imagery with new imagery, but most importantly, it enables us to maintain the metadata associated with this geospatial file. So basically every pixel in this picture has a latitude and longitude associated with it. And because of that, when we then get our hands on the blueprints that are usually rolled up in a basement somewhere, and we cut them out, make them a scale, label them, make them accurate, color code them, and superimpose them on top, the blueprints become geospatially accurate as well. And then when you go and upload this data into the RapidSOS portal, we're able to geolocate caller locations on top of it. But one of the important reasons that I point this graphic out specifically is to highlight an issue that we deal with every day. If you look in grid square I5 and I4, again in the northeastern side of this building, you'll see the doors are marked with little green circles. That's accordance with the national standards. But as I go from south to north, you'll see the doors are marked door 9, 10, 11, 12, 29, 13, and the doors are mislabeled. And the reason for that is because at this specific facility, the doors are mislabeled, which is not uncommon. As we go across the country, we realize that there really isn't a standard in place for how things are supposed to be labeled. But even if there is a standard in place for, let's say, the schools are all labeled the same way, is then you look at the mall, the mosque, the movie theater, the hospitals, there is no standard across counties and throughout the United States of how things are to be labeled. So it's very important that we gather the site-specific labels. So when someone calls 911 and says, I'm having a heart attack in a metal shop, that we can all speak the same exact language from the person who fields that initial call to the person who's making a response. Everything I've showed up to this point has been schools, and that really is the moral underpinnings of the business, but the technique really applies across the board. So places of worship, government buildings, every floor of a structure gets its own graphic. A very large hospital complex in New York City, Milwaukee Brewers Stadium out in Wisconsin. So really the technique applies across the board. Transportation hubs, it really doesn't matter to us. As long as it's a location that's got a building schematic, or even if it doesn't, we will work through that to standardize the content. One of the last slides serves as an overview, but it also enables me to talk about the final problem that we solve, is that within your specific communities, the blueprints are most likely represented by the far left-hand side of the slide. Some structures have rolled up plans, some are on CDs, hard drives. A lot of times, unfortunately, they're just in different file formats. So the first thing that we do is we go out and find the appropriate the file types, or correction, the appropriate floor plans. So we find it, then we fix it. As has been presented throughout the presentation, the floor plans are just kind of in a state of disrepair. So we find it, fix it, create the graphic. The last thing that we've decided to do in an attempt to create a true common operating picture is understanding the lack of interoperable systems within public safety, is that we work to put our maps into all the different systems that are deployed. And what that looks like in practice is that from RapidSOS to the CAD to the system that is being deployed at the school or the structure, if it's a video management system, to a mobile application like ATAC that is used by first responders. Everyone's going to be showing up to a critical incident, or just a simple incident with different tech. Well, we want to ensure that they're all looking at the same map that's been standardized and labeled appropriately, and then transmitted across the first responder networks. Our intent is to partner, and is the way we do it across the country, is that this is a no-cost initiative for public safety. Traditionally, the way it works is that we are introduced to the schools, the churches, the houses of worship, the hospitals. They contract our services, and then we provide those graphics back to public safety at no cost. That's how we've been very successful across the country. That said, there are a number of locations where certain states get involved, and they go and put funds aside for us to come in and map out all the critical infrastructure in a specific community, and then disseminate the maps that we build across the public safety networks. And one of the last things that we do is we also can support from a real-time perspective, from a child going missing to a tactical situation. We were able to recreate a lot of the tools that we used in the military, where, God forbid, there's a tactical situation in a place that's not mapped. We're making those maps and disseminating them in less than 30 minutes. So really, before the incident's up and running, we're creating tactical graphics and pushing them out the door. And really, so it's pre-planning infrastructure, and then also a reactive mapping capability as well. But with that, I truly appreciate the opportunity to present what we do. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate. Either ask me now, and then, or also, this is what we do all day, every day. So if you're interested in additional information, I'd be more than happy to provide a more in-depth presentation for you and the other members of your organizations. Day or night, we're here to support you. So with that, Karen and Jameson, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thanks so much, Mike. I have to tell you guys, I'm so excited about this because Mike and team were in Douglas County when I was still at Westminster. And I remember my SWAT sergeant coming back from that class and that training they were doing and saying, Karen, there's this GRG, have you ever heard of it? And you've got to get it done, and you've got to get it to work, and we've got to figure this out. And, we kind of did a haphazard way with our GIS team through PowerPoint, but this is so much more powerful. It is so professionally done. And Mike and team worked with another site just last week to get them some visuals in an emergency situation. They were dealing with some protesting and some social unrest. So really great partner, great team to work with. If you guys have any questions, we're happy to help connect you with their team or help to answer those for you as well. We're going to talk about some impact stories. The only thing that I will mention here is that Colorado, we need more impact stories from y'all. So any successes that you have using RapidSOS location, additional data in your integration, in your portal, whatever it may be, we want to hear from you because there is really a lot of great work that's going on in this state. We know that you all are using it. We can see that clearly, and I hear it from you guys all the time. But we need your stories too. So thank you, Jackie. I appreciate that. So I'm going to just, in respect of time, kind of skip over a few of the stories. One thing I do want to mention, as I've mentioned before, and Daryl, you were talking about outages earlier, and you guys are tracking here in the state the number of outages that occur. Again, a reminder that Jurisdiction View will still be able to show you calls or attempts at calling 911 or texting to 911. So make sure that in your continuity of operations, your disaster recovery, that you're including the use of RapidSOS portal. If you have to bug out, evacuate, go to your neighboring jurisdiction, or calls aren't coming in because there's an outage, use portal and start to put a procedure together to call back, prioritize, triage those 911 calls. You guys are using it. You all are RapidSOS ready. Let's highlight you. If there's anything that we can do to support you, getting the media to know that RapidSOS ready agencies here in the state of Colorado, to give your communities a sense of security and also to educate them on all of the tools that are available to keep them safe as well, let us know. We will send you some templates. With that, because we do listen, Colorado, we wanted to give you guys some time to give us any more product feedback, questions, and requests. Now, I will tell you there is a lot coming in the next couple of weeks, things that I can't announce just yet, but stay tuned and make sure that you are getting our newsletters. And in a minute, I'll have Julie explain where you can get that. But open session quickly to just go through any requests that you all have of us. And ideas. What more do you want?
Karen, I have a question on, well, it kind of wraps up with the last presentation we saw, but what 3 words, do they have to have the app on their phone to be able to get that data?
No, they do not.
Okay.
They do not. So that XY coordinate, we will do the search through the What 3 Words database to bring that information back.
And then there is any plan to overlay that with the tactical maps? So you get a better idea of where things are at. I mean, what 3 words is kind of small. I mean, a small area, but if you say it's in F5 or something, it narrows down the area.
Oh, I see what you're saying. So a layover of the What 3 Word 3-meter grid over the tactical mapping.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't believe so right now. However, that map pin will drop on the tactical mapping exactly where that caller is. So you may not necessarily need that 3x3. One of the things with GRG, they will do like a micro and a macro view. So you can get into a little bit of a tighter area. Mike, correct me if I stated that wrong.
No, you're 100% correct, ma'am. We'll do a lot of downtown mapping as well, like entire geographic regions. And then we'll do on that macro, we actually call it a super macro. We're embedded in that. There'll be, we call them decimal grids. So you can break it down within that into like 5-meter grid squares. So you'll be able to, we'll grid out entire cities that way and be able to drop that right on top of it.
Thank you. Any other like features you all want to see or data? Is there certain data that you want to see and maybe the ability to eliminate some of those tabs that you all have to log into that we can bring into your portal experience? All right. Well, you all know how to reach us.
Or, you know, I'll just say one more thing. It would be nice if RapidSOS also did text to 911 in the same app.
Thank you for that, Carl. We will take that feedback. Are there others that request that and would like to see it? Okay, thank you, Raphael.
Yep, definitely. Monterey.
Yeah, I agree. This is Mandy.
Okay.
Noted.
That's the stuff. That's the meat, folks. And allow you to initiate. Mike, would you like to say anything about that?
Am I allowed to?
Absolutely.
There's another aspect of the critical response group. We pride ourselves in really taking best-in-class situational awareness and enhancing techniques. So we have partnered with a company out of England called Capita. It's a very large public safety software company that has a product called 911i. It is an emergency video streaming application that also enables two-way texting. That is in the process. That has been partnered, and the integration work is underway with Rapid SOS. That'll be here very quick. So from a two-way texting capability, that is functionality. I believe I don't want to provide the launch date, so I don't get yelled at by Karen, but that is something that's coming down the pipe very quickly. Also important with that does not require any application to be downloaded on that caller's device. So you can, any Android, iPhone that they call, you can enable real-time video sharing from that device, and then also enable real-time two-way texting and geolocation services.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And then at a respective time, Julie, how do we stay informed?
Yeah, we'd like to encourage you guys to sign up for our newsletter. We do release information and updates every 2 weeks. Really, the fastest way to sign up to our newsletter is just search on an internet search, Rapid SOS newsletter. That's going to be quicker than trying to poke around our site to find it. But you'll also find the subscription link in emails and our email signature and communication with us. So.
All right. And with that, thank you guys so much for your time. We really appreciate it. I love when I get to talk to my home friends and family. So. Daryl, Carl, back to you.
Thank you. The presentation is always great. I think today's been a good meeting with good presentations. Daryl, I don't think we have anything further, do we?
No, I think we're ready to adjourn.
Okay. We already adjourned, but our next meeting is May the 13th. So Daryl is going to have some lunch and learns, and he'll get that information out, I'm sure. Thank you, everybody. We're adjourned.
Is there a resource center board meeting today?
No, that would move till next week.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye, everybody.